that might be annoying to a teacher, and that the kid gets sent in. Hopefully he gets sent to us rather than to somebody who's going to sedate him. Okay? And we get kids that come in with trauma markers. They're being bullied at school. They don't have ADD, they're frightened.
Scared stiff of somebody.
Being bullied, sure.
Yeah, okay.
And, that tells us what's going on. We talk with the parents, try to get it sorted out for the kid.
So, Mom, Dad, you got a son that's acting up a bit or a daughter that's acting up a bit? What's nice, and again I'm going to make the comment to the audience because they may not have seen the other programs, I went to see you when there was no perceived, nothing wrong. You just were having fun with me and giving me a Christmas present of having my head examined. And that's what it was. And I loved it. And somebody with me ended up having his head examined, and a problem was found, and it was solved in 8 sessions. Changed his life, too. You change people's lives. So if you've got a child out there that you don't know or the teachers are complaining about them, I'm going to say that just as you take your car through air care, or you go down and get it detailed, you take your kid down to somebody like Paul, and you're still the best one in town. His phone number is 604-608-0444, and he's at 1190 Melville Street on the 6th floor, but phone first. You go down and spend, I don't know, what's the cost now, $150 or something for an intake?
Between $150 and $180 for a standard intake.
Call it $200 with parking, okay? You go down and you have Junior's head looked at, because you can tell. Mom, like Jane, my daughter, is still mad because you haven't been able to find anything wrong with her, right? She feels mad that Mitchell got some spelling lessons and Peter got some ADD stuff, and poor Jane.
Sorry.
Nothing wrong with Jane.
Sorry.
She felt left out of everything. Let's take a break for a couple of minutes. And we're back, and with Dr. Paul Swingle, the neurobiofeedback man. And you can phone in if you're watching. Last week we had 2 people watching that didn't phone, and they sent me emails afterwards, and it's a phone-in show if you want to. Area code 866-980-0499. That's 866-980-0499. If you're watching this between 8 and 9 o'clock, March the 18th, you can phone here. And it's interesting that Chris, on our couch here, had a question. Your question was about your dad, Chris, and we're not going to get a camera on you. But you said that he had a stroke, and then he regained some use, so he could walk and he could say 3 words. And your question to Paul was...
Couldn't write and he couldn't speak.
Couldn't write, couldn't speak, but he could walk. And the question was to Paul, can you help that?
And the other thing about it was, he could follow any conversation.
Oh.
I did things with irony and everything else. And he had no problem following the conversation. And it was what really the frustration was, he could not enter.
Okay. Another part of the question is that father could follow the conversation, but couldn't enter the conversation because he didn't speak. But he could get irony, he could understand the things. So what can you do for somebody like that? This is, father's already passed away in this case, but we all know somebody like this.
What we do is a full brain map in which we look at all 19 sites on the head simultaneously. And what we're looking for when we're dealing with these serious conditions with brain damage is we're looking at brain site to brain site interaction. How's the brain talking to itself? So here's a situation in which a person understands what's being said, knows what they want to say, but they can't articulate it. Now, there are a couple of possibilities there in terms of what's causing the problem. And we have very sophisticated programs now that look at 19 pairs taken 2 at a time. That's 19 factorial, thousands and thousands of data points here.
Yeah.
And we know what each one of them should look like in terms of what degree of interaction you should have. Now, what happens in a lot of conditions is it's not a problem of site A not speaking to site B. It's that site A and site B are 100% linked, so that they're always moving. There's no interdependence between them, or independence. And that's the more typical case with traumatic brain injury. So what we do is we look for these interconnections that are outside normal range and bring them into normal range. And this can help to reestablish the networks that are necessary for speech, articulation, whatever the problem happens to be.
And then you can do in, I'm going to call it, weeks or months what sometimes takes 14 years if it ever happens.
Yes, what happens is after 18 months, then things start to slow down. And if you don't break that inhibitory configuration that we were talking about earlier, then it's very, very slow going. And what we can do neurologically is we can really speed that up.
Okay. Because I've seen a brain-injured man who wouldn't leave the house and was angry and got 4 years of conventional treatment. And I've seen him go from that to singing in a band in 14 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I know that they can do it. All right. Getting old. Losing my memory.
Yes.
Suddenly, short-term memory's gone.
Right.
My son Peter thinks my short-term memory's gone.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to help that? Age-related dementia.
Okay.
Ah!
You sure you want it fixed?
Yeah. Well, this is the point. I like what you say. You fix it, but you don't change the person.
As we get older, there's a brainwave referred to as the alpha brainwaves, and they run from 8 to 12 cycles a second. And what we're interested in is where is the peak? Which groupings of those are the strongest? And in an ideal situation, what you find is that the higher frequency alpha bands are stronger. So if you look at the peak of that distribution, you'll find that the peak is up in the 10.5 to 11.5 range. That's ideal. That's really good.
Okay.
Correlates with IQ. The faster your alpha, the higher your IQ. So we can increase IQ.
Well, you say that you can increase anybody's IQ by 15 points. Isn't that what you say?
That's correct. That's, by the way, a byproduct of what we do treating the ADD kids. Okay, as we get older, our alpha slows down. And that's what's responsible for age-related declines in memory, cognitive processing, immune functioning, feelings of not being as sharp as you want, getting fatigued, and so forth. So what we do, when you get to be my age, what you do is you come in 4 times a year and keep your alpha fast, and it will absolutely prevent non-Alzheimer's dementias.
I mean, this is what you call brain brightening.
Brain brightening, right. Now, there are lots of things that can affect alpha frequency. Kids that are smoking dope, marijuana. In the early days, we used to think it was a benign alternative to alcohol. It's not. It makes you stupid. And what it does is it slows down alpha. Trauma is another thing that affects the alpha frequencies. So one of the side effects of being exposed to traumatic stress is poor short-term memory. So there are a lot of things that can affect.
Now, by traumatic stress, are you talking about problems at work and emotional divorce, death in the family, that kind of thing?
That's correct.
So that, a death in the family, or a close friend, can severely affect you.
That's correct.
On a permanent basis, or?
No, see, now here again is another interesting issue. If somebody dies, you would expect to be depressed. You'd expect your cognitive processing to slow down a bit. Okay?